Rockies. 5 members of this team are playing in the World Baseball Classic. How many of them are pitchers?
You are Locked On Rockies, your daily Colorado Rockies podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Rock on Rockies fans, welcome into the Locked On Rockies podcast for today, the 16th day of December in the year 2022. I am your Rockies fan extraordinaire, Paul Holden, bringing you your daily Colorado Rockies talk right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where you can find your team every day. And if your team is the Colorado Rockies, you're in the right spot because that's what we do. Thank you for making us your first listen of the day. We are free and streaming on your favorite streaming service. We're also on YouTube where you can join the Locked On Rockies community talking about Rockies baseball in the live chat here when we record our episodes live. Sometimes we do some recording beforehand, but more often than not, you can count on us having our live recording here, and you can pop in the live chat just like Nicholas does all the time. He's always here hanging out. Thank you so much for the I feel better. I got the unfortunately it caught up with me. It finally happened. I was dealing with COVID there throughout this week and finishing up everything, but much better now. I feel great. I don't feel very many symptoms, if at all, and feeling ready to talk baseball. And actually, I already have to issue a correction on this podcast. I thought I had read, and I thought that I had saw that the Rockies were only represented by pitching, but they're not. Elias Diaz is representing the Rockies as well, and I must have glanced over that. I must have missed that, but for this Friday podcast, I wanted to talk about, it's kind of interesting, right? I don't think if you were to go out and talk to the average baseball fan, and let's get baseball, let's even narrow down our search. Baseball fans, if you were to go up to them outside of where the Rockies market is and say, how many players from the Rockies, basically the question is, do you think the Rockies are sending more pitchers or more offensive players to the World Baseball Classic? I think most people would say offense. I think they would say maybe Chris Bryant's playing that, or CJ Cron is going out there, Brendan Rodgers perhaps, and then of course everyone else that might be representing their own home countries, because the Rockies got a lot of people from all over the place. Because listen, these are the players representing the Rockies in the World Baseball Classic as of the 13th. Danielle Allentuck has this list. Kyle Freeland and Daniel Bard for the United States. Venezuela, German Marquez and Elias Diaz. Justin Lawrence will be pitching for Panama, and Jake Bird pitching for Israel. So a lot of interesting factors there. And I think that would surprise people. And why I think that would surprise people is because we always hear about offense at Coors Field. We always hear about how difficult it is to pitch and everything of that nature. I don't think people have realized how much offensive struggles and offensive issues have been a part of the Rockies' identity, even in the playoff runs. I mean, the Rockies did have people that could generate great offense. The Rockies were able to be a good offensive team, but not great. When the Rockies would get kind of down into 5 through 9, 6 through 9 in their playoff order teams, when you're relying on your Tony Walters and such for your offense in the bottom part of the lineup, and Daniel Murphy and Ian Desmond and things of that nature, the Rockies did have a pretty steep fall off, and a big issue of why they weren't very successful in both of the playoff runs outside of the one game against the Cubs, which was a dink and dunk, low-scoring game anyway, was the fact the Rockies' offense kind of still had some holes there. I mean, they had the clear, obvious good pieces of Arenado and Story and LeMahieu and Blackmon, but outside of that, there was still the issue of trying to figure out and try to knock them in, and especially if they are struggling, if those pieces of your offense were struggling, then you don't have much. You weren't getting much, if at all, any production from those other people in the Rockies offense. And now you're looking at it the same way. The Rockies miss out on Joey Gallo. If you guys missed that news today, Gallo signs a 1-year deal with the Twins. Another one-year deal the Rockies missed out on. A left-handed bat in the outfield. If the Rockies have not been successful in adding to their plan of adding offense to this lineup this offseason so far. So we need to be prepared for the Rockies offense to be mediocre to poor again. This team, Chris Bryant will bring in something. Yes, we do know that. But overall, this team is going to be not a very imposing threat of an offense. And that's why I kind of was thinking about this thing when I was thinking about the World Baseball Classic. And it's kind of interesting. It's like, where's CJ? It's like, would CJ Crone want to get in there? But there's no one really in the Rockies offense outside of Brendan Rodgers right now that you would say, I think that he would be the best fit for this team out of all of the players that could represent the United States in the World Baseball Classic. When you're kind of thinking about that, and I mean, obviously I know that's not how it works, and it's different, and people making their own announcements and their own commitments if they want to play or not. There might be some better players that choose not to play, which is fine. But when you're kind of thinking that, are there really any pieces of the Rockies offense outside of Brendan Rodgers that would be the one to start and represent the United States? I don't think so. I think Elias Diaz, I think a big benefit that Venezuela is going to have is that Elias Diaz is going to be catching for German Marquez. That's going to be a nice little boost for when those two start. And there's an interesting thing that's also going to be for Rockies fans, especially when you're watching this World Baseball Classic. We'll talk about that in just a moment. Hey, I forgot to mention at the top that this episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline, as you covered this season, with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline, where the game starts. We're also brought to you by Built Bar. Pause in the second, because it's snack time, right? You're looking for something quick. You're looking for something easy. You're looking for something low on sugar. But you got a hankering. You kind of want something like maybe cookie dough, maybe brownie, maybe coconut. Well, guess what? They got all sorts of great stuff at Built Bar, and it's all low calorie and low sugar. 100% real chocolate, 17 grams of protein, and shockingly low sugar and calories. Only 130 calories. You can sink your teeth into that first bite, and it'll change your life forever. They got this special flavor right now, the white chocolate peppermint granola. It's built to take on the granola bar, so it's more filling and still insanely tasty. They also got the candy cane brownie puff. Built Puffs are like biting into the universe's most delicious cloud. Built Bar, you got to check it out. You got to see all the stuff going on at Built. Get 15% off your order by using this code LOCKEDON15. That's LOCKEDON15 for 15% off your order at Built.com. Let's dive into the live chat here. Nicholas Delvo says, of course, we should be seeing a lot more long balls, but haven't seen much lately. Exactly. We talked about a whole thing of how the Rockies are not a team that are leading or dominating in home runs. They aren't a team with a lot of people hitting home runs, and that is a major issue of why the Rockies aren't winning ball games and aren't scoring runs. The home run is an important tool to have. We were last offseason, and when I talked before, we've talked about maybe the focus on the long ball is exaggerated, and it's not. The home run is so important, and it's the best offensive tool that you have in Major League Baseball. I mean, it clears the bases, it's multiple runs, it's an RBI, it's a run scored, it increases every part of your batting line. However, you can't just solely rely on that. You need to be able to take advantage of your dimensions in your ballpark and hit around. And the Rockies just aren't doing that. Teams are coming in and doing it against the Rockies. Coors Field was not a strength for the Rockies last year. In fact, the Rockies probably benefited the least out of playing at home. What did we talk about? This was one of their worst home performance seasons in a long, long time. Those are real issues. And especially with the Rockies and you're looking ahead, yes, all right, they got these solid pitchers. And again, those pitchers all going to represent the Rockies have some potential. Bird and Lawrence are interesting ones too. I know that the jury's still out on those two, but Herman Marquez, Kyle Freeland, and Daniel Bard are all established veteran pitchers in baseball. And out of all of the Rockies representation, it's just the veteran backstop Elias Diaz on the offensive side. I mean, that's still kind of on the pitching side too. I mean, Diaz might be, I'm sure they're leaning on him, Venezuela's hoping to get that big power, but this is an issue. This is it's kind of just a quick snapshot into one of the big problems with the Rockies. Yes, the starters aren't great for the Rockies, or weren't great last year, but they've been good enough. And the Rockies were in enough situations last year where if they were actually able to do anything offensively on the road, they would have stolen some games on the road. They wouldn't have been great, but they would have been better than they were on the road. It's, I guess, still looks a little bit better when the Rockies were on pace to be historically bad on the road last year, but the road pitching hasn't been nearly as big of a deal as the lack of road offense. The Rockies have left Coors Field and have not played well on the offensive side of the ball. That also is the case for the Rockies at home as well. At Rock's Hot Takes, the Rockies offense was asleep this year. Let's hope Bam Bam can fix this for 2023. This is something that is interesting as well. Finally, a move from outside of the organization, someone that was beloved in New York and that had a really good success last year. In part, I mean, it wasn't just him. The Yankees have the resources. I think he was technically an assistant or whatever, or the duties were split. But that is more encouraging to me than what the future holds for the pitching staff. Because yes, right now we have the foundation. I will still stick up for most of this rotation. They're not as bad as we saw them last year. The upside to these Rockies pitchers is still there, at least the veteran ones that we've seen before. The back half of the rotation, the jury's out. Jose Urena could be an interesting X factor there to see what a full season does for him. But he was a prime example of someone that would like to see more offense from the Rockies. So when you look at it, when you look at this kind of snapshot, when you look at the Rockies only having one bat being sent to the World Baseball Classic, it makes you think. The Rockies are not the offensive team that a lot of people think that they are. Can they? Can they get, with this current roster and with the moves that other teams are making and the current landscape of where the free agency market is and maybe what the Rockies' plan is at this point, can they turn offense around with the pieces they have now? We'll talk about that in just a moment here. But before we do that, you're hanging out with some friends and putting back a few drinks. A few becomes a few too many. As the evening comes to an end and people start to head out, you think of calling for a ride. Nah, you live nearby. You can make it home okay. It's no big deal. What are the odds you'll get pulled over anyway? And even so, what's the worst that could happen? Your insurance goes up, you lose your license, you lose your job, you total your car, or you kill someone. Everyone knows about the risks of driving drunk. The results are tragic and often deadly. However, that still doesn't stop everyone from getting behind the wheel while under the influence. That's why police officers are out there right now looking for impaired drivers on our road to save lives. So if you think you're okay to drive after a few drinks, think again, play it safe, and plan ahead to get a ride. It only takes one mistake to change your life or someone else's forever. Drive sober or get pulled over. Elmo Selig says, compared to what we've seen from him in the past, I think I'm curious who you're mentioning there. But can the Rockies' current roster, because right now, with Joey Gallo being gone, I know there's probably some more things. Joey Gallo is just fresh on my mind. I kind of thought that the Rockies were going to sneak in. Not a lot of talk of Joey Gallo. This might be the move. I really did kind of think about that was being more of a realistic option for the Rockies. Is this Rockies lineup going to generate more offense next year? You can't answer that question. You really can't. Because you look at is how big of an impact truly will Chris Bryant make if healthy? Let's hope that all that stuff truly is behind him. The big issue, the big thing I'm worried about before we have to get all excited about Chris Bryant's big return to the Rockies and him actually playing the first, full everything. He had multiple injuries last year, different ones as well. What's that going to be for the Rockies? The Rockies also now are going to be able to turn to Charlie Blackmon as a DH full time, and I think that's an interesting option for the Rockies as well. I think that is going to allow Charlie Blackmon to thrive a little bit. I mean, it's he can take the stress off of focusing on defense because Charlie Blackmon playing defense and stealing reps from young guys, it just can't be the move. You have to look, we've talked over and over and over again of finding the spots for these prospects to play. Hopefully, we are going to see the real Eleris Montero next year. I think the big ultimate X factor for the Rockies offense when it comes to run generation next year, they have to get the Montero that he believes in himself. A Montero breakout season for the Rockies next year is big time. If his offense, if he is able to go out and generate the offense that he believes that he is capable of doing, then that is going to help the Rockies because I think him and Brendan Rodgers will be a nice dynamic threat. And if Ryan McMahon can cut down on the strikeouts and leave the yard a little bit more, these are the type of things that you'll see for the Rockies that will help the Rockies, and they will generate more offense. If we see the kind of the same trends that we saw last year, because we're going to see a similar lineup, with the exception of you're not really going to, Connor Joe is not going to be a factor. You're going to see Jonathan Daza, your Randall Grichuk most likely. Is that going to be, if we see the same trends of this team going in, doing nothing on the road, and there's really nothing to be super, super excited about in terms of this offense. We know what this offense can be. We know that this offense isn't much. At least right now, they didn't do a lot. So can they be better? If certain players improve and break out, these young guys, yes, they can. Will they? I'm not ready to start saying anything until we see them in spring training. Live chat is going off here, so let's take some questions. Abel Vargas says, are the Rockies going to do something in the market? You'd have to imagine. I don't know what, but the options continue to dwindle in the outfield. These one-year deals, I don't understand why they keep missing out. And we mentioned, we got Elman Selig says, as someone who deals with a back injury, those do not go away. Exactly. I mean, and things flared up. I mean, he came back too fast. For Chris Bryant did. We saw him try to push it last year. So what is his body going to allow him to do next year? We're going to have to see you. Who finished with a better record? The Cubs or the Rockies? The Cubs finished with 77 wins last year. Is it 7? Was it? No, not 77. 74. 74 wins. And the Rockies finished with 68 wins. The Cubs are we're the better team and the better record, so maybe a little bit more enticing. But again, if you're kind of one of these players that are looking for, if you missed the pod yesterday, you can kind of come in and it's a little more low key to reinvent your career here than having to go into doing it in Chicago. It's it is frustrating. It is annoying. I think this is kind of it. I mean, they've told us they were going to be aggressive. They told us they've had a plan. They told us that they wanted to get a 1-year deal done. I mean, 2 prime 1-year deal candidates for the Rockies. Poof, gone. I mean, and you didn't hear anything other than just a little bit of some crumbs. So I don't really think the Rockies might stand pat completely on the offense. I think the Rockies might just roll with this lineup next year. As the agency market continues to dwindle, as some players that continue to get crazy money, I just don't know where are the Rockies? Where are the Rockies? I mean, it's a question. We have to start asking. I mean, if you're not going to do anything since you've missed out on this point, just tell us you're riding with the prospects. Just say that's the plan, because that's basically the Rockies admitting the rebuild. And then you're at least fine enough with the Rockies aren't performing on offense. It's because we're turning to these guys and we can figure out and we can make trades and you can move on and you can do things. Right now, we continue to sit and look up at the sky and wait for the signal from the Momforts and Bill Schmidt on something for the Rockies. They have been active in the bullpen. We can't sit here and say the Rockies have done nothing, because the Rockies have gone out and added a lot of major league arms to the bullpen. So that will be a different story for the Rockies. Nothing too groundbreaking, exciting, I think, but that is one interesting wrinkle for the 2023 Rockies. How much the new look bullpen will help. But so it's kind of a grab bag of an episode today. Eric Hosmer, DFA, does he fit in here? First base is just not really where you'd want to add. I just don't think that you're really looking to add another first baseman, because we've talked before. Again, where does Eleris Montero play in the infield right now? Where, like, if he is an everyday starter, where is his where are we going to end up? Where does he end up? The Rockies in 100 losses, as that's what we get in the live chat here, and we'll kind of close here on this one. This team, the team isn't bad enough to sit there and say they're a 100-loss team, because this team is going to be the same one basically next year, and they didn't lose 100 games. They were very close, obviously. But they were also close on the other way too, where the Rockies could have won 73 games. The Rockies could have tied the Cubs last year. I don't think it's crazy to say that the Rockies could have with the ball bouncing the other way, not walking 5 people in a row, not giving up 3-run home runs in the 9th or the 8th, giving up these late things, or actually being able to do somewhat of any sort of offense on the road. I think the team has proven that they're not 100-loss bad. If they were 100-loss bad, that end of the year in LA would have gone way different. The fact that the Rockies should have gotten crushed in that 6-game series against LA to finish the year, and they didn't. They're actually one of the teams that performed the best overall in the season against the Dodgers. It's kind of an interesting thing. The Rockies have avoided 100 losses their whole season, and I can't sit here and say this is the worst Rockies team I've watched. At points last year, maybe, with some of the injuries that they had with the bullpen options, but that's something there. The Rockies have got major league arms in the bullpen, something they didn't have a lot of last year. But who knows? The big thing we talked about in the first 2 segments of the pod. What will this offense do? What will this offense be able to do at home or on the road? Yeah, Abel, I catch every game, I think, in one way or another. I do a lot of listening to games, but it's impossible for me to catch all 162. Sometimes there are games that I catch recaps on, but I will catch at least in any. I watch in full or listen to 150 plus Rockies games a year. It's and I did this before I did this too. I love sitting down to watch Rockies baseball. I just wish it was in a better spot. Folks, that's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Rockies here. But thank you so much, Rat Rocks Hot Takes, for tuning in and for the kind words. Appreciate you calling us the best baseball podcast around. Much appreciated. Folks, I do want to let you know we are going to be shifting a little bit into the off-season mode. So we're probably going to be shifting to more of some 3 episodes a week, through the off season just because of the downtime and stuff. And I got a lot of stuff going on, but we will still be live every week. You just might see us closer to a Tuesday through Thursday schedule as we kind of go through the doldrums. And then right in spring training, we're back in action. So just kind of a time for me to get a little time to kind of think about things, plan some stuff ahead, and get there. But we'll be talking Rockies and the live chat. Oh my goodness, today Elmo Sudik, Nicholas Delvo, Abel Vargas at Rocks Hot Takes, Eric Harper, Nicholas, everybody. Thank you so much. We got Furious MMO. We got these folks are here. And so if you want to join in on all the live chat fun, if you want to be part of what we do around here, you can by following us on Twitter at LO Rockies. You can also subscribe to the Locked On Rockies YouTube channel. And folks, have a wonderful, wonderful weekend. Until next time, this is Paul Holden saying so long from the Locked On Rockies podcast.